Hello, so welcome in this third day of Java Champion Conference 2026. So let's begin to talk about the 7 talks. So here it is. The first talk was by Katalin Tudors and Vladimir Sonkin. Katalin is a Romanian-based Java champion and Oracle ace, which is and also a chapter lead at Luxsoft, and is known for being dedicated to the Romanian Java community. And Vladimir is a colleague of Katalin and is a Java expert at Luxsoft. And the talk was about Beyond Agents, a new architecture for reproducible code generation workflow. In the AI era, architecture drifts when developers keep patching code parts everywhere. AI is great for local fixes, but risky for global architecture. JAIG flips the approach. Instead of patching the app, you regenerate the whole application from a spec, applying only partial updates in the specification. PPL and Jaggle became the recipe. From spec, you get to workflow, then to code with low cost and high reliability. So the thing is a kind of a spec-driven development. You have the specification in a Jaggle and Paper file, and then you push a button to regenerate all the application from these files. So here's the explication of JAIG. JAIG is justified AI generator, and concretely, you have the JAIG Studio. Here you have the file. In the file, it is a kind of a big prompt defining all the structure you will need, and then you have a pipeline which each step which is defined here, and when you push run button, this generates all the app from these files. And when you have something to change, you come to modify these files. So you start from the spec and then you generate all the application. You do not touch the code. Then the talk by Simon Martinelli. Simon Martinelli is an experienced software developer and architect with over 40 years of experience, and he's a Java champion, Ace Pro, and also a Vaadin champion. And he's known for his talk, and he's from Switzerland. And his talk was also about spec-driven development, and he speaks about how he builds app by writing spec first, then letting AI, Claude Code, generate the code from the spec. And when a bug appears, he fixes the spec and regenerates instead of patching the code like a typical Lambda developer. So he starts by explaining how vibe coding can be good or risky. Then he explains the spec-driven development. You start with a spec. It is the source of truth, and it leads to less guesswork, fewer surprise, and better code. Here's an example of the UI of the tool he's using in his integrated development environment. And as conclusion, he says specs helps. It's just a tool, but you must review, understand, and test the output. Know your architecture and domain. Then there was a talk by Folk Sipach, sorry for the pronunciation, which is who is a Java architect in Germany and who is well involved in Java community in Germany. And he speaks about value object, the next big thing in Java. He dives into value object coming from Project Valhalla. First, the project goals, the Project Valhalla goals, then the gap between primitive versus object, and finally, how value object brings data-like types. He also covers nullability of types with Kotlin-like IDs, and then other stuff. So here's the agenda. First, definition of Project Valhalla, then primitive versus object, then value object, and then other stuff. And you have to remember this slogan: code like a class, work like an int. And what does it bring? 50% less memory, no overhead from object references, faster direct access as the data is closer to the CPU, and automatic removal from the stack, no garbage collection. And this is the nice stuff about the Kotlin similarity. It could bring a thing like this. If you put an exclamation mark at the end of the type, it will not allow null. If you put a question mark, null will be allowed. And if you put nothing, it is just as before. Then the talk by Elias Noguera, which is known for talks on testing, and is an Oracle Ace, a Java champion, and now works in Netherlands, but he's from Brazil. So the talk is test smarter, not harder, achieving confidence in complex distributed systems. He focuses on testing distributed systems using test containers plus Spring profiles to spin up real databases and a GitHub Action matrix to run tests in parallel. For third-party dependencies, he prefers WireMock in Docker, more reliable than sandboxes, and for async flow, he uses this Awaitility. So here are the three things demonstrated in the talk: support multiple databases, mock dependencies, test asynchronous requests. And here are the takeaways for each of these parts. I let you read it at your convenience. Then the talk of Oliver Drott-Braun. Oliver is a German architect working at VMware. He's known for his knowledge of Spring Modulate, and here he speaks about why hexagonal and onion architecture are answers to the wrong question. He explained how decoupling changes software cost, comparing layered hexagonal and onion architecture on the same model. He highlights the weakness: classic layers plus hexa-onion often force too many public classes, while modular design stays cleaner. He ends with a quick jMolecule demo. So here are the slides. On the left you have the hexagonal architecture, on the right the onion architecture. Then there is here a parallel between each of these architecture and the Spring architecture. So you see in the end it is using the same Spring bricks with a dependency injection. And then here you have the different part for each of this architecture, which has decomposed according to different packages. And the difference is that on the left you expose more things in public rather than in the right, where there is only the service which is public, the blue dark boxes. Here's some quotes to remember, which was displayed at the end of the talk. So remember that designing for container leads to decoupling, but not vice versa. Then there was the talk of Jonathan Villa-Lopez, which is a senior developer advocate at Sonar, a Java champion, Oracle Ace, and also a co-founder of the conference in Barcelona. And in his talk, he speaks about 7 habits of highly effective AI Java coding. He shows that AI isn't automatically the most effective approach, highlighting its flaws and where it fails. Then he shares practical tips to use AI well, for example in peer review, and introduce the case wording, which is keep AI simple and stupid. Here's the agenda: first AI code generation, then pride and ownership, then documentation, simplicity, no stray code, verify, test, review. And here the acronym he coined, which is keep AI short and simple. So I let you read, but in the end you have to have maintainable code, easy to read code, and lower cognitive complexity. Then the last talk by Kitoman. Kitoman is a principal consultant at Virtua, is a Java champion, and has also in the past the title of Google Developer Expert, and is very known for his implication and dedication in Jakarta EE documentation. The talk is about modernizing the mission critical with open rewrite and AI, which is a talk of how to modernize and how to migrate an application. He explained why teams delay modernization and what finally pushed them to do it, plus the railroad constraints and traps of upgrading an application. He also highlights tooling like open rewrite to automate and accelerate modernization. Here are the links at the end of this talk. You can find the slides in the first link, his company, and then the OpenWrite recipe. So OpenWrite, in the end, it is you choose a recipe and then you run it, and it automatically does the change to migrate an application from one older state to a new updated state. and this only by a run button. And in the end, my advertisement about the Java Developers Roadmap book, which is based on the Java roadmap, which was written in Devox 2024 in London, I think. And if you have watched this Java Champion Conference, you might read this book and find it interesting, because there is some advanced concepts that you might at least use. So thank you very much, and maybe see you in another video. Bye.